Thank you so much, Eugene, founder of Chainstack, and Victor, a founder of Ormi, for joining the call. Today, we're talking about blockchain infrastructure, data, and a lot more about how developers can really set up a really better infrastructure for their blockchain applications. So, with that being said, I would love to just learn more about Ormi and Chainstack. Victor, I would love for you to introduce your background, tell me a little bit more about what Ormi does, and why did you build Ormi?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. My name is Victor, founder and CEO of Ormi. So Ormi has been around for the past 3 years. We started off actually as decentralized credit scoring system, and then we realized data is a very much unsolvable problem. Blockchain data is public, but it's actually very hard to get it right. So gradually, we realized, hey, we need to solve the fundamental problem of, retrieving, indexing, serving data model. So hence, Ormi right now has, for the past 2 years, has become the real-time blockchain data platform. We power, billions of TVL for protocol value. Some of the most time critical protocols in the Web3 space are critically dependent on us. And a bit about my background. So prior to Ormi, I was at Microsoft. So at Microsoft, I was working on the core Chromium browser kernel, and as well as built essentially a precursor to Copilot in the browser. And before that, researcher did my undergrad degree at Cornell University, where I focused on system on a chip. So like semiconductor related, more about like optimizing, multi-core processing as well as high-level synthesis, more like low-level performance related improvements. So kind of take that expertise, on infra, on performance to Ormi today.
Awesome. That's really awesome that you've had such extensive experience building production grade applications, which are very relevant to Ormi. I'd like to hear from Eugene as well. Eugene, what got you interested in building products such as Chainstack? You can tell us a little bit more about Chainstack as well.
We're building Chainstack for the last 8 years at this point. So we started quite early on as a first comer for the infrastructure space in Web3. We started about the same time as other prominent companies such as Infura, Alchemy, that are also quite well known in the space. So we were one of the first companies there as well. And it was started really by necessity. So I was working in a software company that was exploring blockchain-based notarization solutions. So we needed to timestamp files and objects on the blockchain. And we started using Ethereum for this because there was no other options, at that point with programmable smart contracts. And it was a big pain in the ass to manage all these nodes at that point of time. So we were shuffling between parity and geth and trying to run one when another failed and, configuring complex failovers in case one is not operating properly. And so the idea was quite, intuitive that blockchain will mature and it will get more adoption and people will need more production grade platforms to build on blockchains. And so we got inspiration from, other cloud platforms Google Cloud Platform and DigitalOcean and AWS. And we thought that there should be some cloud, but for blockchains with developer tools that are useful for builders on the blockchains. And our earlier belief was that there will be a lot of blockchains, which is very true today. At that point, there were maybe two large ones. And now I think the register of blockchains that are alive contains about 500 chains at this point. So it's grown dramatically over time. And so our thesis 8 years ago was that we will offer, distributed access to this galaxy of blockchains. So our punchline was a multi-cloud, multi-protocol platform to manage blockchain nodes, which is still up to date. I would say we operate on multiple platforms, multiple data centers around the world, and we support about 100 protocols at this point. My background is in cybersecurity and research, so I was working in software companies all my life, and was working with storage and compute before building Chainstack, so a very natural transition to Web3 infrastructure from traditional infrastructure.
Yeah, what I love here about your story, Eugene, is that you've had like a extensive experience. You've seen blockchain go from zero to mainstream adoption, which is I think is really cool. And then couple it with Victor's experience, just a lot of experience in tech in general, and you're seeing what it's required to kind of build a production grade applications. And with that, in the last few months, we've seen such explosive growth across like a plethora of new use cases for blockchains. And it's not just, again, like the two blockchains that you mentioned, Eugene. It's now a lot more of just more chains and also more use cases such as AI agents, stable coins, institutions are coming in, prediction markets. As new use cases emerge, blockchain and architecture requirements, I assume, change as well, which both of you have a quite amount of experience with seeing, what that looks like, throughout the years. So I would love to kind of learn more about, Eugene, what are the new use cases that you're seeing? What are the customers that you found really exciting?
Right. So indeed, the space evolved over the last 10 years dramatically. So when it started primarily with idealistic, picture of people transferring each other money over Bitcoin, now it's a very, diversified landscape of different applications. However, having said that, I think that there was of course, as per the innovation curve, there was always a place, and blockchain is not an exception, where there was an area of inflated expectations. So people at some point thought that everything will be on the blockchain, including ourselves. We were strong believers in that. Approximately, I would say six years ago. And so everybody tried to build everything on the blockchain, including supply chain, systems, and all other things that should actually not be on the blockchain. So I think that we have passed this plateau of inflated expectations, and now we are in a very realistic segment of development of this industry, and we see the verticals developing that require blockchain, that is a must there, basically, which includes but not limited to finance, of course, all sorts of financial use cases, including payments, trading, cross-border transfers, but also other industries where it's it's an interesting application, like with agentic payments, for example, which is also part of finance. So broadly speaking, I think that most of the useful applications in the blockchain are in finance, because that's where you need a immutable ledger and where you need like programmable money. There are some, scenarios where it still makes a lot of sense. Like, for example, if you have a game and you have a virtual currency, which is not necessarily a financial scenario, but, it is related to, value transfer and value accumulation, then it also makes sense, in my opinion. Scenarios such as, NFTs and such, we will still see how it works. I still believe that there are segments of scenarios where putting NFT on the blockchain makes a lot of sense. However, it's not as ubiquitous as people thought originally about NFTs. That you put anything on the blockchain and make it an NFT, and it's gonna be just amazing, like that. So my particular view is that financial scenarios are number one, and that's where you actually need blockchain, and you might not be able to build a system without blockchain. And latest development on that is, of course, agentic payments, and that's what we see with all the LLMs, buying things and transferring value. And blockchain is absolutely a must there, because you cannot have any other financial rails there that are good enough to support this type of payments.
Yeah, so as blockchains mature, it sounds like the use cases have really been honed in, and one of them is like financial payments. And I think that it sounds like, from what Victor has previously mentioned, and also the partnership that you mentioned, like the partnership that we've talked about with Chainstack and Ormi, is one thing that hasn't changed is blockchain data and the need for blockchain data, especially for these financial use cases. Victor, well, I'd love to hear from you. Like, how has the data needs of blockchain apps changed in the last few months? Is there any
Sure.
requirements that are different or specific different blockchain types? In this case, it sounds like financial use cases are one of the most pertinent ones. Yeah, I would love to hear more about you about the data requirements.
Sure, sounds good. So I'll start from the long term to the short term and then the past, right? So first of all, I cannot predict the future, right? I cannot see into next 10 years. But I can tell you with fairly certainty in the next 2 years, right? These are the two macro trends we're seeing. One is tokenization of the entire market. So you're talking about the SEC chair in the US saying we're going to tokenize everything, putting everything on chain. That's January, strong regulatory push. So essentially looking at blockchain industry from degen Web3 crypto to 2 billion to trillions, multi-trillions, right? So the entire industry, in a way, the degen built something, uh, crypto native built something, but that is about to be a paradigm shift. So essentially, with that, right, with that tailwind, essentially you're looking at every institution, every enterprise, gonna at least for compliance reasons, will have to have uh, required to have accurate access to on-chain data, and sometimes it's real-time data. So the infrastructure space is just getting started. And number two is, of course, this AI, agentic autonomous workflow, right? So in a way, we can see the past 10, 20 years with Snowflake, with Databricks, that's essentially about like modernizing the ETL process, putting stuff into the cloud. But that has been consolidated. The next step is how does basically the postmodern data framework is how does an AI agent end-to-end producing, consuming data. And in that case, blockchain is actually at this perfect moment where there's strong regulatory push to digitize, tokenize everything, and plus it's the AI agent workflow. That's going to be massive amount of infra requirement for reading data from blockchain, as well as perhaps agents producing data. So that's what I can see in the 2 years that we're very bullish on that. And over the past couple months, we have seen just the industry maturing, right? We have seen real world assets being traded 24/7, like with our premium clients, Ostium, who are essentially are trading gold, silver, forex, as well as top tier DeFi protocols are gradually integrating with the institution. With that, it's more and more stringent requirement for accuracy, uptime for blockchain data. And go further back, right? Maybe last year we've seen a lot of new blockchain scaling solutions, like hundreds of new layer 2, layer 1s are being launched. That seems to have reached a saturation point. But the good thing is we have more block space, so we have more transaction throughput than ever. So the entire world is actually ready to come on chain.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys both mentioned that there are major changes in blockchain development, specifically on how stringent the requirements for development has been. And with these new use cases, such as AI agents, developers are going to really have to think a lot about how they're interacting with the blockchain, how they're managing money. So I really love to have the next section where we're talking about maybe a little bit more about what should blockchain developers think about. So in that case, I'm curious. I think like either Eugene or Victor, you guys can answer this, but I kind of want a little bit learn more about why is indexing important to developers, and why is it considered a core infrastructure?
Sure, Ethan, please go ahead since you are the indexing expert. So
You
I
want me
can
to?
add.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I mean, so to put it short, right? How an application or developer interacts with blockchain is same as traditional services. There's a write path, there's a read path. The write path is essentially smart contract, you perform execution. That's been talked over and over again by VCs because for a while, up until a year ago, right, we had an issue with writing lots of data to the blockchain. And the next path is the read path, right? Getting data out of the blockchain. That's what data indexing essentially is. Without a fast indexing read path, it doesn't matter how fast you're committing your transaction on chain, you're not going to be able to run an application. So you can call it indexing is essentially, kind of the most critical side of facing the end user. Slow indexing means transactions are going to not be there. And also the way blockchain organizes, it stores all the data from the past. So building a functional data model from raw hexadecimal is a fairly complicated process that requires every transaction being indexed, requires heavy infrastructure that really requires a dedicated operator or infrastructure team to do it correctly. So kind of in a way, I think both like Chainstack and Ormi are doing is abstract that away for developer, right? They simply just do a monthly subscription. They deploy their app in a day instead of having to manage the headache of running infrastructure, which we all know actually costs millions of dollars a year to operate. So yeah.
Maybe we should provide more sort of background and history. Why is indexing so ubiquitous and necessary in our domain? To begin with, so we have this core layer infrastructure which is called blockchain nodes, which in fact were never designed to serve data for data consumers, which might sound funny, but it's true. When blockchain nodes initially were designed, their primary roles were to serve consensus, requirements of the blockchain, basically generate blocks, agree with other nodes via peer-to-peer protocol that everything is correct on the blockchain. And so serving the data was maybe even, not secondary, but tertiary, requirement for the node to operate. So majority of the protocols out of this 500 that I mentioned are actually not having the right, software to serve the data at scale. And they are using, very primitive, as per Web2 standards, technologies to store data like file level databases that are not really performant to have thousands or tens of thousands of requests per second over these databases. So indexing is very ubiquitous here because in order to have a scalable access to the data on all these blockchains, you actually need to put it somewhere else outside of the node. And like Chainstack, for example, is a node provider, and why we're partnering with Ormi is because we want Ormi to to handle all the subgraph specific workloads because they're experts there. But in fact, even internally in Chainstack for our own node services, we do a lot of indexing as well because because these protocols that people got used to, like JSON RPC for EVM chains or any other protocols that became very popular, are actually not performing adequately to the requirements that this modern blockchain consumers have. So we actually have to rebuild the stack to have a more scalable and reliable infrastructure for the data consumers to get access to this data. So yeah, that's just a bit of history why indexing is so important even in our business, which is not necessarily indexing per se or data business. We're primarily a node provider, but we still do a lot of indexing in house to make sure this data that we provide through canonical node APIs and RPCs are is correct and fast and reliable.
Yeah, I think between both Eugene and Victor, you guys both mentioned a lot about reliability, performance, and knowing when you need to switch to another hack or switch to another managed service. And I'm kind of curious, how do you guys decide on the metrics that you guys keep track of? What metrics should developers be looking at when they're looking for an indexing service or a data provider?
Eugene, would you like to go start? Would you
Sure.
like to start?
Sure. It's very traditional metrics, I would say, in infrastructure space because in our case we are doing SaaS in both of our cases with Chainstack and Ormi. And so traditional SaaS metrics in infrastructure space are uptime, error rate, and response time. So basically, we measure how often our services go down, how many errors do the services produce, and how quickly the services respond. So these are like a basically trio of great metrics in infrastructure space that all the reasonable, entrepreneurs and company owners and executives track, because these are the ubiquitous trio of metrics in every infrastructure business that are very necessary to track and that impact your business directly if one of them are not adequate towards the requirements of the customers. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to add one more thing is because there's actual, financial transaction asset that's being treated on chain. A lot of time, this data quality thing is actually very hard to get it right. For example, 99.9% of the time you have all the transactions, but the one time you miss a transaction, that will actually really show up in user balance or point distribution. At the end of the application side, right? So part of that is, redundancy layer, double checking, normalizing data so that, and financial assets from the user side is not impacted. And obviously, blockchain doing live transaction, doing live trading, which is actually a very common case, right now, having a skipping, 10 minutes delay, that's really just not acceptable to people, especially now blockchain is trying to compete with some of the traditional high frequency trading side of things with the blockchain transaction topping hundreds of thousands transactions per second. So all that is actually adding extra requirement to the infrastructure. Yeah, but as Eugene said, the basics, uptime, reliability, error rates, and all that are the foundations. Yeah.
Precisely, and over time, all these requirements are getting more stringent. In the early days of blockchain, there was a lot of slack allowed, I would say. So like people used to the fact that it's an experimental piece of software and this experimental technology in general. So if some provider, returned wrong data or was down for a certain amount of time, there was a lot of like loose requirements around that. Hey, it's still experimental. We'll switch to something else. And these days, it's completely different. After this 8 years at least when I'm in the business. So now, if your service is down for 5 minutes, it's actually worse than the whole Cloudflare is down, because people are basically not showing up the dashboard like with the financial data, or they're not submitting transactions, etc. So whenever we have a minor downtime, we have a lot of issues for our customers. And it's almost comparable or even more important than Cloudflare websites are down.
Yeah, that's a good sign the industry is maturing. There is real critical money on the line.
Yeah, I think that's a good sign for all like blockchain developers and users that, if with these stringent requirements, with all these eyes making sure that, they're getting the transaction data, it kind of means that, blockchain is actually mainstream and people are using it, which I think is a really good sign for any developers who want to join the industry, or any users who just also want to kind of take a look more into other products as well. It sounds very promising. But I do want to hear about the secret sauce. Victor, how is Ormi so performant? I think you mentioned you guys have a 99.999% uptime.
Yeah, I mean, roughly 99.9%. So this is essentially it's hard work, right? It's a very strong engineering team who really focus on the low-level type of optimization. So in the beginning, we realized with the blockchain data growth size and the speed, we realized to kind of focus on a bare metal first architecture to basically best tune the database and latency to serve to end users, and as well as on the operating cost side of things. The bare metal hybrid architecture really kind of helped. So and also just engineering, the entire engineering team who's been really thinking at optimizing every aspect and taking clients' actual real-time requirement and service requirement into account. So, I mean, for infrastructure space, there's really no shortcut. You have smart people, you work hard, you iterate. That's how you achieve the low latency, the uptime.
And sometimes people say, oh, like it's a commodity business, all this blockchain infrastructure, it's like gonna run to zero. Good luck trying to replicate it, honestly. I mean, if you, let's say, it's not like you spin up your Replit website and you ask it, oh, can I have, a subgraph provider, can you vibe code me like Node RPC service? So it's very hard because it's a lot of expertise and a lot of hidden knowledge. As I mentioned, all these blockchain protocols are very poorly documented usually. So with the recent, new protocols, it's getting better because more, I would say, like senior production grade engineers are joining the space. So it's getting better, but generally speaking, the documentation in the space is awful. And troubleshooting means you need to go to Discord, find the right person, ask the right question, and maybe they will respond to you. Or rather, nobody will respond to you, and you need to, figure it out yourself. So there's a lot of, I would say, mode in the experience of operating all of this infrastructure and like having the right runbooks, having the right automation, having the right number of experiments that you've done over time to get to this like a state where everything is running, in an optimal fashion. So yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all experience, I would say, mostly.
Yeah, so developers have heard it. Experience, hard work, and if there's an opportunity, also improving documentation and customer service and general operations, it sounds like.
Totally. Yeah. It sounds pretty boring, but that's what makes infra business, exciting and valuable for me and Victor, for sure.
Yeah, so we both heard from Chainstack and Ormi, Victor and Eugene, you guys are really the best of the best in blockchain infrastructure. And you guys recently announced a partnership to improve the development experience and really better task applications for these high volume use cases that we talked about, institutional trading, AI agents. And so Chainstack Subgraphs will migrate to Ormi, and Chainstack RPCs will support Ormi's data provider infrastructure. Yeah, I would love to learn more about this partnership and what it really means for all developers. That being said, Victor, I'd love to hear more from you. Why did you choose Chainstack?
Well, I mean, it's Chainstack is what you see, what you get, right? It's enterprise grade, it's high performance. You just throw requests at it without having to worry about anything, and as well as its data accuracy. We've done like lots of comparison, against competitors. It's really just somebody has our back, right? Because a core component of indexing for subgraph for uptime is actually I don't want to. It's actually nearly like 80% is RPC performance, RPC accuracy. So I mean, there is no way that we would have not, kind of given, the primary RPC usage to Chainstack in this case. And as a lot of people claimed, to run their own node, we've also run our own nodes in house up until maybe 3-4 months ago. It may seem easy, but once you get to production grade, there's constant updates. It's just require a dedicated team to operate that, and that's just not sustainable, in house. So instead of that, we want to focus on what we do best and let Chainstack do what they do the best. So it's just naturally a very good partnership, and it's good to know that Chainstack has got our back.
Yeah, it sounds like Chainstack is the best at what it does. Ormi is the best at what it does. And I guess with Eugene, could you talk a little bit more about, so you're, migrating of Chainstack subgraphs to Ormi. Why do you choose Ormi over, other indexing providers?
To begin with, yeah, it's exactly what Victor said. We just want to do whatever we do the best. And so the rationale in our case was exactly the same. So we launched Chainstack Subgraphs about 2-ish years ago. And so we got substantial traction. But this year we decided that we will go laser focus on all things nodes, all things node orchestration, elastic nodes, dedicated nodes, cloud, hybrid, on-premise. So we just do all things nodes. We want to be, the household name in when you associate with blockchain nodes, your number one association should be Chainstack. So that's our laser focus. And we were looking for a new home for Chainstack Subgraphs, and there are frankly not that many subgraph providers in the space, but Ormi popped up because they are hyper specialized on subgraphs and they just do this and nothing else. And so then I also had some long history of relationship with some people from Ormi, and so we had a discussion initially and built a solid plan of migration where all our customers get really good treatment from Ormi and really smooth experience of migrating from Chainstack Subgraphs. And so we are actually finalizing the migration right now. So it's the last week of migration, and all our customers will be fully on Ormi subgraphs and transferred from Chainstack subgraphs by the end of the month.
That sounds really exciting. Yeah, so we've learned a lot about the state of blockchain development and why indexing and blockchain data are more important than ever. In closing, we like to really offer developers a few takeaways and how to help them succeed. So Victor, you mentioned that you working with a lot of businesses that have more than $100+ million in TVL. Can you tell us a little bit more, like what do you see in these founders, these businesses that help them succeed?
Well, I mean, focus on the real use case because there's a lot of trends in Web3, but ultimately it's your community. Your community means the people who actually use your products rather than who are going after your token. And that's actually in a way how we propel the entire industry forward. Because in a way, right, infrastructure provider like us or Chainstack or even blockchain themselves ultimately dependent on end user who are creating value on chain and deposit value onto those blockchain. So the very fact that you are building innovative protocols, focusing on fundamentals, solving many of those problems that should have been solved 5 years ago, bringing the entire world on chain. I think that's the number one. And then if you're building that, we're happy here to support you with the best infra in-house. Yeah, I mean, we've already built the rail. It's just for you to come and build, on top of us and onto the entire crypto industry.
Eugene, you had mentioned that you connected with Victor a long time back, and it sounded like you were very impressed. So I'll put you on the hot seat a little bit. Uh, why do you like, what are some of the good qualities of a founder, whether it's Victor or someone else? I would love to hear more. Like, I think a lot of blockchain developers love to hear more about, what are the qualities that you kind of see when you're working with someone?
Yeah, I think some of the good qualities of founders, especially in our rather strange space, which with a lot of ups and downs, is persistence. And so being able to sustain over a long period of time is very important in our space. And I've seen plenty of great, smart, bright people who just, could not wait another year or two for the breakthrough for their business, to make sense. And in blockchain is also very important in our space is to be able to filter information because since it's a lot of noise due to trading activities and such, you actually need to extract the actual signal, which is in bull markets is very hard to do. For example, bear markets are amazing for us because there is no noise almost, and so whatever signal you receive is almost certainly the right signal, or at least it's much easier to filter it out. So I would say persistence is very important because whoever is playing the long-term game, those will win. If you are here just for a year or two or for cash grab, it's totally fine. I'm just not interested in such business models, and I care a lot, for example, about my reputation, and so I want to be very transparent with customers. I want them to remember, myself and our company as a reliable provider that will stay with them for next, 50 years. I don't want them to think that, okay, today we use Chainstack and Chainstack closes tomorrow and like we're gonna need to find some other provider. So persistence, reliability in your, communication with the customers as well is super important in our space, and particularly to achieve, trust and good standing ground because it's very rare, in fact, in our space, unfortunately. And yeah, ability to get the right information out of the noise because in good times of the market, it's extremely hard.
It sounds like, yeah, a lot of persistence and also, filtering out the noise. And in this case, it sounds like you guys were able to filter out the noise and recognize that developers really do need good indexing services, good and performant blockchain data. And in this case, that's why like the partnership makes a lot of sense. With that being said, is there anything else that we should be excited about? Victor, is there anything on the Ormi roadmap that we should be looking for?
Well, I mean, our vision has always been more or less, the same, right? Kind of those fundamental first principle thinkings. We know, like the entire world, financial rail will be on chain. Like that's what we believe from day one. That's why I'm in the space, and we're just seeing that getting started, and which will just mean, tremendous amount of infra needs. So yeah, I mean, that's our mission from day one. It really has just, it's still day one. We're very excited for what's coming with all the volume, all the requirements on data infra from a subgraph data indexing side.
Awesome. And maybe another question would be what companies that you're working with that you're excited about?
Really, on our side, it's those companies who are bringing traditional finance onto blockchain. Those high frequency trading perps who are actually allowing people anywhere in the world to trade, in foreign markets and real world assets, and lending, borrowing with credit, being generated on chain stablecoin issuance, as well as AI agents. We've also seen clients where they're running AI native workflow, trading on blockchain, generating data. So yeah, I mean, really things are just getting started.
In light of things and getting started, Eugene, what's on the Chainstack roadmap that we should be excited about?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned that we swifted gears a bit this year, and we want to switch from being an infrastructure provider to be the platform that would be the de facto standard for everything related to nodes and blockchain data. So that's our ultimate mission right now, which means that we will also, roll out some new products in this, domain this year. We're gonna run our beta program for the new product in January. So we're introducing a self-hosted version of Chainstack that will allow anybody to run nodes on their own, cloud or servers or premises. That will unlock a lot of capabilities for those who are sensitive with regards to latency or response times from their nodes, for example, or those who need to run nodes in-house for compliance requirements and a bunch of other scenarios. And you believe it or not, there's no such platform today at all. So there's no software to operate nodes in-house. There are a bunch of scripts and tools and YAML files online that you can find, but there is no single platform that will allow you to do it in a production-grade fashion. So we are extremely excited about this opportunity, and we are full speed on shipping this year. And this is bringing Chainstack from just an infrastructure service provider to more like platform for all things blockchain nodes. That's our mission for this year and beyond.
Sounds like 2026 will be a busy year for you guys, being a DeFi hub for nodes, and for Victor also just being the most reliable, being the best for blockchain data. So sounds like a really busy 2026. With that, thank you so much, Eugene of Chainstack and Victor of Ormi for joining the call.